She was the woman who built an empire from a phone camera and a pool hall job, and then watched it all quietly fall apart. Jolene MacIntyre wasn't just Chad Hiltz's fiancée. She was the reason Bad Chad Customs ever existed. She was the brains, the business, the vision. But somewhere between a wedding that never happened, a third season that never aired, and a loss so devastating it would break anyone, Jolene disappeared from public life almost entirely. Today, we're telling the story most people never got the full picture on, and it's more heartbreaking than you'd expect. Most people who stumbled onto Bad Chad Customs assumed Jolene MacIntyre was just the girlfriend, the pretty face keeping things organized while Chad worked his magic in the garage. That assumption couldn't have been more wrong. Jolene grew up in Centerville, Nova Scotia, a small, quiet town most people have never heard of and couldn't find on a map. She wasn't chasing cameras or clout. She was building something real. After high school, she enrolled at St. Mary's University in Halifax, earning a Bachelor of Commerce in Finance while simultaneously studying kinesiology. On top of that, she was a competitive athlete, playing midfielder for the SMU Huskies soccer team, putting in the kind of disciplined, team-first work ethic that would later define everything she did in business. When she graduated, she didn't land some corporate job in a glass office. She took work as a supervisor at a golf resort in Centerville, then picked up shifts as waitstaff at a pool hall in New. Mean-us, humble jobs, unglamorous. But she was sharp, driven, and quietly building a foundation nobody around her could fully see yet. She just needed the right spark to set everything in motion. And that spark walked through the door of the pool hall one afternoon and changed everything. Chad Hiltz came into that pool hall around 2015 or 2016 with a simple request. Could she put up a poster for his annual Rockabilly Weekend car show? It was the kind of exchange that should have lasted 30 seconds and meant nothing. Instead, it started everything. The two connected over a shared love of cars, and Jolene quickly realized Chad wasn't just another guy with a hobby. He had a gift that most people in his small Nova Scotia town had no idea what to do with. He could look at a pile of scrap metal, junk parts, and rusted-out frames and see something nobody else could. She saw that, and she also saw something he didn't, a business nobody had built yet. They started dating, she joined the shop, and it wasn't long before Jolene understood exactly what was missing. Chad had the talent. He had the vision. What he didn't have was an audience. So she made one. She picked up her phone, started documenting every build, every weld, every impossible transformation happening inside that garage, and posted videos every single Friday on Facebook. Consistent, patient, strategic. Within a year, those videos had caught the attention of someone at Discovery Channel. And just like that, everything was about to change. When Discovery came knocking, most people assumed the show was Chad's opportunity. What they didn't realize was that Jolene had been quietly engineering it from the beginning. She wasn't just along for the ride. She was the one steering. Behind the scenes, Jolene took on everything the cameras rarely showed. She managed the finances, controlled the budget on every build, kept the crew on schedule, and made sure the business didn't collapse under the weight of its own ambition. Chad himself was the first to say it. She was the brains of the operation, not a supporting character, the architect. But her biggest contribution didn't happen in the shop. It happened at a desk. When Chad's original business name, Green Goblin Customs, ran into licensing and copyright issues that were actively costing them money, Jolene handled it. She restructured the brand entirely, renaming it Hiltz Auto Company, a name that could grow internationally, carry merchandise, and operate without legal headaches. It was the kind of quiet, unglamorous decision that saves a business most people never even knew was in trouble. She wasn't just Chad's fiancée managing a garage. She was the co-founder of a brand that now had over 120,000 YouTube subscribers and tens of millions of views. And she built most of that before the cameras ever showed up. On August 12, 2017, Chad Hiltz got down on one knee and Jolene MacIntyre said yes. For fans of the show, it felt like the natural next chapter. The power couple who had built something remarkable together, finally making it official. And Jolene herself couldn't have been more open about what she wanted that future to look like. She said it publicly, without hesitation. She wanted the Bugatti replica Chad had spent over a year building for her to be their wedding car. She wanted to ride in it on their wedding day. It was the kind of detail that felt perfectly on brand for two people whose entire love story had been wrapped up in cars from the very beginning. But the wedding never came. Season 1 aired in 2019. Season 2 aired in 2020. Fans kept waiting for an announcement, a date, a hint of something on the horizon. Nothing. No explanation was ever given publicly. No falling out was reported. The engagement ring stayed on her finger, but the future it pointed toward seemed to keep drifting further away with every passing year. It's one of those things that's easy to overlook from the outside. But when you sit with it, years of an engagement going nowhere, a wedding dream quietly shelved, it paints a lonelier picture than most people noticed at the time. When Season 2 of Bad Chad Customs wrapped up in August 2020, nobody treated it like a finale. Fans assumed a third season was coming. The show was pulling in strong viewership, the cast had a genuine following, and Chad himself confirmed in late 2020 that they had already been signed by Discovery to start filming early the following year. It felt like a sure thing. It wasn't. Early 2021 came and went. No cameras showed up. No premiere date was announced. Discovery never made an official statement explaining what happened. No cancellation, no renewal, just silence. The kind of silence that's somehow worse than a straight answer because it leaves everyone in a permanent state of waiting for something that isn't coming. What made it more complicated was what Jolene revealed years later in a 2023 Facebook video, that the show operated very differently from what viewers saw on screen. Most of the cars weren't actually paid for by the on-screen customers. Discovery covered the builds. The business model that looked so exciting on television was, in large part, constructed for the cameras. When the cameras stopped, so did that version of the operation. For Jolene, who had sacrificed years building the brand that made the show possible, watching it dissolve into an unanswered question had to cut differently than it did for anyone else. When the show stopped, Chad kept going. He continued posting on YouTube, sharing builds, staying connected to the car community that had rallied around him for years. The channel kept growing. The audience stayed loyal. For Chad, the cameras may have stopped rolling for Discovery, but the work never did. Jolene's path looked different. The woman who had once been the most vocal presence behind the brand, the one running social media, building the online audience from nothing, posting every Friday without fail, gradually pulled back from public life. Her activity dropped off. The visibility faded. And the person who had been just as responsible for the channel's 35 million YouTube views as anyone else became increasingly difficult to find online. Whether that was a deliberate choice, a response to circumstances nobody talked about publicly, or simply the quiet exhale of someone who had been running at full speed for years, nobody has said. Jolene has never addressed it directly, and that silence has only deepened the questions fans have been asking ever since. What's clear is that the version of Jolene MacIntyre the world got to see, driven, strategic, fiercely present, didn't disappear because she stopped caring. Something shifted. Something changed. And whatever it was, she chose to process it, far away from the audience she had spent years building. Then came November 2024. And whatever weight Jolene had already been carrying quietly got heavier. On November 28th, her mother, Jolene MacIntyre, known to everyone who loved her as Jackie, passed away at the age of 61. She had been battling cancer and spent her final days at Valley Hospice in Nova Scotia, surrounded by the people closest to her. Those who knew Jackie described her as a woman with a soft, shy soul, someone who showed remarkable grace and dignity even as her illness took hold. A mother who had devoted herself completely to her two daughters, Amanda and Jolene. The obituary painted a picture of a woman deeply embedded in her family's life. A woman who loved home decor, classic rock, going for drives, and texting her daughters. Simple things. The kind of things that only feel small until they're gone. Jackie had watched Jolene build something extraordinary from nothing, had seen her daughter go from a pool hall in New Minas to a Discovery Channel series, watched by people across the world. And then she was gone. Chad was named in the obituary as part of Jolene's life, a quiet but telling detail that confirmed, at least at that moment, that the two were still navigating life together. But the loss itself belonged to Jolene in a way that no camera could ever fully capture. At 36 years old, Jolene MacIntyre's story doesn't fit into a clean ending, and maybe that's the most honest thing about it. She came from a small town nobody had heard of, built a brand from a phone camera and sheer determination, helped launch a show that thousands of people still talk about today, and did most of it without ever really asking for credit. She never got her wedding. She never got her season 3. She lost her mother, and she carried all of it largely out of public view, without explanation or fanfare. There's something quietly devastating about a person who pours everything into building something, and then has to watch it slip away piece by piece. Jolene MacIntyre deserved more than she got, and wherever she is now, whatever chapter she's writing next, she earned the right to write it entirely on her own terms.